Trust.
A thousand artists have done their damnedest to paint her, but all in vain. And every day their hopes grow vainer, the reason's plain. For victory is also known as victor, making it tricky to depict her. Victor, Victoria, Victor, Victoria, Victoria, what a victor you are.
I spread confusion, my illusion is serene. Behind the screen, am I a king or am I a queen? I'm such a tease, fellas like these, trying to please, get ill at ease, not sure if he's Louis or Louise.
For a long while, it was over my dead body. I'll never, go through that again. 5 continuous years on Broadway, just about. I mean, to this day, she still has nightmares.
Julie did start in the theater. She did start with an audience in front of her. So that's going to come back.
Victoria, what a victor you are. Victoria, what a victor you are.
The demonstration that we gave at the Waldorf showed us what we had, and what we had was not good enough, we realized, so we upped it a little bit, and then we got into rehearsals, and then we upped it a little bit more, and that's, I suppose, the nature of a Broadway show.
However wonderful she might have been in whatever movie, the rarest and most ultimate magic was in live performances, and so it's really genuinely thrilling to me that she's back.
I think she waited until the kids were grown and she'd done what she needed to do and the family was taken care of, and she was free to really give herself completely to it, because she's not one to do anything halfway.
It's a little like Cassius Clay coming back, or Joe Louis after they won the championship. She left here on top of the world, and to go back and take that big chance, I can see how intimidated she'd be.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have great pleasure in introducing to you our youngest soprano from Starlight Roof, Julie Andrews. Well, Julie, is this the first time you've ever made a gramophone record?
Oh, yes. Is it your first record, too?
No. How old are you?
I am 12. How old are you?
My mother and father divorced when I was quite young, so from a very early age I actually remember just commuting between the two families. My mother remarried, my father remarried, both had children. But my mother's second husband was Ted Andrews, and he had a wonderful tenor voice, and my mother, who was a fine pianist, joined with him, and they became a vaudeville team.
Ted was a big, bluff Canadian, and Barbara was a beautiful singer, who was also a very fine musician, and it was she who really taught Julie the principles of show business, and they used to drag poor Julie around with them, and she didn't like doing it.
My stepfather decided to give me some singing lessons. I think it was in an effort to get close to me, to make friends. I don't know. He had no idea that I had any kind of a voice, but suddenly he just said, well, let's see, I'll teach her to sing and we'll have some quality time together, so to speak. And to his surprise and all of our surprise, I had this freak adult voice in a very little girl.
Julie joined the act, and initially, as far as I remember, although I didn't see this, I believe would stand on a box or soapbox or something to get up to Ted's height, and they would sing duets together.
The fiddles are playing a tune that you know. Hey, ho, come to the fair, the drums are all beating.
And then gradually, as in some sort of terrible B movie, it changed from Ted and Barbara Andrews with Julie to Julie Andrews with Ted and Barbara.
So it comes then, maidens and men to the fair in the pride of the morning.
I first met Julie in 1947. We were in a show called Starlight Roof, which starred Vic Oliver and other luminaries. She was a child of 11, very solemn, very large eyes, enchanting, and we were both terrified, and we both used to shake before going on stage. And as soon as we were on, the shaking stopped, and boom, we were into it. You know.
I first saw Julie many years before we met. She'd made quite a big splurge. There was quite a lot of publicity about this child with a phenomenal voice, and my mother said, "This you have to see."
I followed an act done by a wonderful man called Wally Bogue.
And Wally used to do balloon sculpture, you know, blow up the balloons, and then tie them all together and make animals. And an absolute tremendous hit.
At the end of his act, when he had all these wonderful animals, giraffes and dogs and poodles and things like that around, he asked if there was any little girl or boy in the audience who would like to come up and get one of these.
And I always remember this tiny, bony little thing suddenly said, I'm coming, and she ran up on stage.
And then the man who really was the star of the show was also on stage and would talk to me and say, what do you do? Well, I sing, you know, would you like to sing for us tonight? Sure.
What are you going to sing for us?
I'd like to sing the Polonaise from Mimi.
Oh, lovely. Just the kind of junk I like.
And she used to stop the show every night. She stopped it the first night, and from then on she took all the notices.
I think the amazing thing about Julie's voice was the clarity, the purity, and the range of it.
I first actually laid eyes on Julie in the flesh as opposed to in photographs. I think she was about 11 and I was 12.
Tony saw me in a production of Humpty Dumpty, I think, when I played the egg.
And when the egg fell from the wall, there was this enchanting little gal with some kind of chocolate makeup all over her egg, over her legs, which I found extremely seductive.
And he happened to be on the train going home to our hometown.
And then when we all got out at the station, Walton-on-Thames, I asked where she lived, and she said the other side of the tracks.
And the next thing I knew, Tony and his brother were around at the house, and they found out where I lived, and Tony began to write from college, and he wrote such sweet and lovely letters with wonderful drawings in them, and as you well know, he's now one of the leading designers on Broadway and in film, and he did little drawings of a book that he was doing. Eventually we became boyfriend and girlfriend and went through our teens together.
She was quite often out on tour in what is here called vaudeville, but in England was the music hall shows, and she would be in variety shows called things like Bells on Their Toes, B-E-L-L-E-S.
In music hall, you only did it for 1 week here or 1 week there, so you spent your life on a train.
So I toured and toured England many times and belted out my bastardized versions of operatic arias, and my mother accompanied the piano, but eventually I went out on my own, and they were good learning years, but they were tough and difficult.
They were a very mixed bag, these shows. Sometimes they were sort of accidentally wonderful, and sometimes they were almost heartbreaking.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you so very much for the kind way you've listened to poor little me. Though when
It's only in retrospect that one realizes one was ever unhappy or uncomfortable or whatever. But actually, the ability to be a breadwinner and things like that, that came pretty naturally. I mean, we needed money, and I was able to manage it, and it kept us going.